please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
398.97, so 0.2 down, about 18.20 down.
A lot of the mid-cap IT companies who are doing some really nice solid work in a specific domain or a niche, I think they will end up doing much better than the biggies.
If you are asking for HPCL, right now my largest shareholder is not asking me any price.
It is confirmed, and within a week there has been an increase of around 27% in alumina prices.
There was an open offer in the morning for 26% equity, which is a mandatory open offer at a price of 74 rupees a piece.
IHH late last evening has reached out to the board of Fortis Healthcare and has put in a counter offer for buying out Fortis Healthcare.
By any criteria except comparison to China, India is a very impressive story. 7% GDP growth over the last 25 years.
Market is up 36 odd points, 10,453.
OBC, Union, Andhra, Bank of India. We're talking 2-3% gone from most of these stocks.
Bulls continue to claw back as markets gain some lost ground. Nifty rises for the 6th straight day. Sensex gains over 160, but the mid-caps stock rebound loses steam and the index ends in the red.
Technology stocks star in today's trade. The index closes over 3%, led by Infosys, HCL Tech and TCS, thanks to a weakening rupee. The rally comes a day ahead of Infosys earnings, which kick off. Earnings, of course, coming in tomorrow.
Alumina prices shoot up to nearly double the February levels. Nalco stock rises close to 2%.
Oil marketing companies recover from the lows in the last 1 hour of trade. This after the oil minister Dharmendra Pradhan says that no direction has been given by the central government to fuel retailers to absorb any rise in fuel prices.
And Fortis Healthcare gains 4% as IHH makes a counter offer to the TPG Manipal $1.3 billion bid to buy the company. Dish TV sees an upswing as the company's promoters buy 5% in the merged entity with Videocon. Well, those were the top 5 headlines from the day's trading action. Hello and welcome to Markets Today Talkback, the show where we tell you all about the 8 hours of trading in just 5 lines. I'm Lata Venkatesh, with me my colleague Prashant Nair. Hi Prashant.
Lata, thanks very much for that. As always, we wrap up the day's action in essentially the top 5 stories. And we'll get them to you one by one with questions, of course, which you send us every day. Market experts are going to be joining us to answer those questions. We will have Angel Broking's Mayuresh Joshi and technical expert Mitesh Thakkar. Gentlemen, thanks very much, both of you, for being with us here, as always, on Markets Today. Let's quickly wrap up the day's trading action before we move any further. Lata.
Well, I think today the bulls came out tops, no two ways about it. They didn't have much help from Asia. They didn't have much help from oil, as we know, at $73. They didn't have much help generally from risk assets, which have been rattled a bit with President Trump's tweet about, the morning, the tweet was the previous day's tweet about the bombs coming nice and new over Syria and daring Russia to put up a defense. Of course, now things have softened a bit with newer tweets. But in the morning, it did look a little tense. In spite of it, we did well. Rupee and bond markets actually did badly in the opening. Dollar cost as much as almost 65.50, and bonds opened up at over 7.5%. But both those receded a bit, and that also seemed to have helped sentiment, particularly the private banks, which have been showing a lot of support at lower levels. So Axis, ICICI, Kotak, all of them climbed up, helping the index in general. But maximum help came from the IT stocks, which were still benefiting from the overall weakness of the rupee over the last 3 or 4 days. And of course, probably some pre-Infosys buying.
Looks like it. And actually, my stock list actually begins with IT. I mean, by far the biggest gainer today. The index, the Nifty IT index, and it was followed by private banks, much smaller gains there, and of course the Nifty Bank consequently was up about 0.4% as well. Real estate, metals and PSU banks were the 3 pockets of weakness, and they'll come up on your screen. So between 1.25% and 2% cuts there. IT, HCL Tech, TCS, Infosys, and of course tomorrow we'll be doing IT all day with Infosys announcing numbers. Gain, I mean, in terms of other gainers, Axis, HDFC, and ICICI Bank also stand out. So between 0.75% to 1.6% gains. And losers, as I said, metals, Vedanta lost. I mean, the stock's done pretty well recently. Tata Steel was lower. Lupin, Dr. Reddy's from the pharmaceutical space. And you had ITC and State Bank of India, which were lower as well. Lata.
All right. Let's straight away ask our guests what they would do with the levels at which the markets are. Mitesh, first to you. To me, it looked like remarkable resilience. But you tell me, time for more long trades?
Good evening, Lata. I think you highlighted a couple of factors as what all factors did not help the market. What helped, I think, was the rupee and the IT stocks surge. Partly, I think the bank Nifty also joined in the rally. I think getting past 10,430 was good. But the strength of the or the breadth of the breakout wasn't there. So I think it was not a very emphatic kind of a breakout. What typically happens in these kind of cases is that we have a shift of range. So I think the range is now shifted upside. We were in 10,430 to about 10,350 for the last few days. Now I think it should be close to about 10,400 to roughly about 10,550, 600 on the upside. So in that sense, yes, you should be trading with more of long bias, but don't expect runaway rally to happen over here or very strong follow through to happen over here. I think it will be a gradual climb on the upside, and closer to about 10,600 is where I expect a lot of supply to emerge.
All right, we actually are going to move on to the second headline of the day now that Mitesh has set us up for the day in terms of the market setup. Technology stocks were the top performers in trade. IT index was up over 3%, led by Infosys, HCL Tech and TCS, which were all up over 3% today. This rally comes a day ahead of the start of the earnings season. Of course, the rupee weakness also helped. We spoke with Nilesh Shah of Envision Capital on the earnings expectations. Listen into what he said.
The outlook for the next 2 to 3 years, I think, is very positive on the sector because a lot of the new areas, I think, is going to start contributing a larger share of the revenues for these companies. And these companies have reoriented themselves. But it's still going to be a bit back-ended. So I'm not expecting any of these companies to really stand up today or tomorrow and say that we're going to grow in double digits. I still think that the guidance that they will kind of give out is going to be high single digits at best. So one needs to be a little careful not to get carried away. And I don't think, and I still think they're a few quarters away from stepping into a double-digit growth environment.
Okay, well, that's the word coming in from someone who has watched the IT stocks for a goodish bit. But time for Q&A. A viewer has written to us, Prabir Mukherjee. His tweeted query is that he has 50 shares of HCL Tech purchased at 960 rupees a piece. Okay, 50 rupees a piece is his profit at the moment. He wants to know what is the resistance level and whether the shares can be held for the long term. So that is a question for both of you then. Mitesh, first, where is the resistance?
Yeah, I think, the earlier highs, which were at levels of around 1,020, 1,030, would be the final frontier for the stock to get past, and we are not very far away from that. And once that happens, I am looking at targets of 1,200 plus. So I would be very, very comfortable holding on, possibly even adding at current levels, keeping a stop below 950 over here. I think in the next 6 to 8 months, you should see about 20% gains happen.
Mayuresh, long term is what he's asking.
Evening, Lata. I think since he's a long-term investor, yes, the whole recommendation continues from my side. Largely based on the premise that the revenue growth, both in constant currency and dollar terms, should be pretty solid for this company going ahead. Again, in terms of volume growth and the kind of order book that it has got and the different sub-segments, including IMS and engineering, should abet and aid its earnings momentum going forward. So all the parameters, apart from all this, including utilization levels, attrition levels being more manageable at this point of time, should lead to earnings momentum. So yes, I think a clear hold from my side as well.
Okay, we've got one more question. This is coming in on Infosys. Avinash Patra sent us a tweet. He wants an outlook on Infosys for the period of the next 6 months. Mitesh, why don't you take this?
Again, I think next few months for most of the IT stock look positively biased. I think Infosys, if you look at the last few months, I think it's been doing a range of about 1195 to 1200 to roughly about 1100. I think that breakout should happen on the upside, and once that is achieved, I would look at targets closer to about 1300 to about 1350 on the upside. So stay positive. I think there's no worry for the next at least 4 to 5 months.
Okay. That's very confidence infusing, I must say. But, you know, it's only for 6 months. Nevertheless, the results are tomorrow. Mayuresh, what will make it a buy for you?
No, so Lata, I think if you go by what the expectations on the street in terms of guidance is, the street is of the belief of a 6 to 8% constant currency guidance growth, EBIT margins between 23 to 25 odd percent. So that's as far as the guidance from the management is concerned. Now the key segment, which is BFSI, I think that's going to be a key driver in terms of management commentary. It accounts for almost 32 odd percent of its overall revenues. So with US tax reforms, what happens in terms of discretionary spending on this segment is going to be extremely critical in terms of the digital deal wins or the transformational deal wins that they can actually garner. So again, I think the legacy projects are quite substantial on Infosys books, and what happens with capital allocation is going to be key. But my perception is that they should probably hold on to this guidance, and as Nifty was mentioning as well, I think the deal wins should probably abet them in the longer period of time, and dividend payouts obviously abet shareholder value as well. So yes, expectations probably on these levels from Infosys, but again, I think it's a hold from my side and a disclaimer, we hold this stock in advance.
Okay. Yes, 6 to 8. If the guidance comes 6 to 8%, then I guess most people would be happy with the results. Third headline of today. Alumina prices have shot up to nearly double the levels they were in February. The stock of Nalco rose close to 2% in trade on the back of this development. In fact, the company management now expects both alumina and aluminium prices to remain elevated.
This has also made a big jump from $1,967. It has gone to $22.53, which is around 17% growth. So we have little earlier difficulty in aluminum sector, and now with this price will be quite comfortable there. And with comforts in aluminum sector and aluminum making a steep increase, definitely we expect a very good benefit in EBITDA terms. We expect that it will be positive, EBITDA positive with this level of price.
Okay, we've got a question on Alco. A viewer, Anwar Ali, has sent us a message. He wants to invest 2 lakh rupees in Nalco for the long term. He wants to know the right time to do it. So that is the question on Nalco. Mayuresh, first of all, should he do it? Not whether it's the right time, but should he?
So Prashant, I think looking at the price increases, and as the management was alluding, alumina prices have gone through the roof. And even if you look at the aluminium prices at this point of time, you blame it on US sanctions on Russia and what Rusal has probably come out in terms of their guidance and statements. I think the short-term impact in terms of aluminium prices moving up is very, very evident. For Nalco in particular, I think the kind of production that they do and the internal consumption of alumina for aluminium production is restricted to a certain bit, and the export part is something which earns a substantial EBIT from the alumina business. So the aluminium EBIT was something which was a laggard in terms of the overall SOTP calculations. But as the management is alluding, again, I think with aluminium prices moving higher, even the aluminium EBIT should probably be on the higher side. So the overall earnings trajectory with aluminium and alumina prices staying at elevated levels should be on the higher side. So yes, declines is the way I'll put at this, that he can probably look at the stock. But an alternate way to also look at the metal space would be Vedanta, which we are also equally liking from a long-term perspective.
Okay.
You're with us here on Markets Today Talk Back. We've been answering your questions. Mitesh Thakkar and Mayuresh Joshi are with us, helping us through the queries. We got through the first 3 headlines of the day. We wrap up the day's events in 5. So here's the 4th one. Oil marketing companies recovered from the lows in the last hour of trading today. And this after the Union Oil Minister Dharmendra Pradhan said that no direction has been given by the central government to oil marketing companies to absorb a rise in fuel prices, which means essentially that they are free to pass on the price increases to consumers at the pump. The OMCs were under pressure as crude, though, floated around the $72 per barrel mark. Let's quickly listen into the oil minister himself
very candidly, Prime Minister appealed to the world energy producer. Yes, we don't want a very low oil price, but it must be responsible. Why there will be such a price hike? What is the reason? Financial market, sentiment, all these are fine. But ultimately, affordability of common consumer is an important issue in Indian policy. We never interfere the day-to-day pricing mechanism of companies.
Okay, so all that the PM said is that the pricing should be responsible. Catch any chairman wanting to raise prices when the Prime Minister says that pricing should be responsible. But no, let's listen to N.K. Surana of HPCL on the same issue.
One common connotation which the people have is if the prices are going high, the oil companies are making a huge margin. That is not a fact, and that is not a correct thing also. And that as a company also we do not encourage that to make the windfall gains on the rising prices. Right now my largest shareholder is not asking me any price rise. Okay.
What his shareholder of course is ONGC, and he may not have given him directions, but the market is not able to shake off the fear that the Prime Minister has called for responsible pricing. We have a caller on that note. He's calling us from Nashik, Ganesh Patil. He has a question on ONGC. Patil ji, kahiye, aapka sawal kya hai?
हाँ सर, मेरे पास ONGC के शेयर हैं, 1000 शेयर 190 के रेट से खरीदे हैं. तो उसको मतलब रखूं या एक का मतलब अभी मैं 1-1.5 साल रख सकता हूं.
ओके. 193 तो मतलब 8 रुपए का भी नहीं, 12 रुपए का नुकसान है. Well, what would you want him to do? Mitesh, if you can answer in Hindi.
Yeah, I think ONGC में कुछ लॉन्ग टर्म चार्ट्स में ऐसा बड़ा तेज़ी का सीन या बड़ा अप ट्रेंड का सीन नहीं है, तो आप इसको ट्रेडिंग पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें तो ठीक रहेगा. आई थिंक ये लेवल्स अच्छे हैं ट्रेड करने के लिए. ऊपर में जब भी आपको इसमें 200-210 के आसपास के रेंजेस मिलते हैं तो वहाँ पे आप एग्जिट ले लें. स्टॉक एक ब्रॉडली माइल्ड अपवर्ड ड्रिफ्ट में है, परंतु बड़ी तेज़ी के या लॉन्ग टर्म चार्ट में कोई तेज़ी के साइंस नहीं है.
ठीक है, बहुत तेज़ी का तो अनुमान नहीं है. मयूरेश, क्विकली.
बिल्कुल, आई थिंक मैं मितेश से सहमत हूँ. और कहीं ना कहीं अगर जो ग्रॉस रियलाइजेशन ONGC एंजॉय करती है, जब तक ऑयल $70 नहीं क्रॉस करता तो डायरेक्टली नेट रियलाइजेशन में फ्लो थ्रू होता है. जितने इनके गैस प्रोडक्शन और ऑयल प्रोडक्शन के एक अनुमान है और जैसे नए फील्ड स्ट्रीम पे आएंगे, कहीं ना कहीं आई थिंक एक प्रोडक्शन लेवरेज वॉल्यूम से दिखेगी. बट अगेन आई थिंक जो अर्निंग्स मोमेंटम है वो आई थिंक इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग एटलीस्ट एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम लग नहीं रहा है. तो आई थिंक अगर ये 193 क्रॉस करता है और उसके ऊपर अच्छे आपको भाव मिलते हैं तो एटलीस्ट पार्शियल प्रॉफिट बुकिंग करनी चाहिए और ज़्यादा बेहतर स्टॉक्स में आपको निवेश करना चाहिए विद इन द लार्ज कैप स्पेस. सो आई थिंक रिटेल बैंक जैसे HDFC बैंक हो, वहाँ पे आप निवेश कर सकते हैं.
ऑलराइट पाटिल जी, 200-210 में निकल जाइए, ये है एक्सपर्ट्स का कहना.
All right, so from ONGC to standalone refineries, Sujit Dage has sent us a message. He's got 650 shares of Chennai Petroleum, paid 230 rupees a share for them. He's been holding stocks for the last 2.5 years, and he wants to know whether they should hold or sell. I mean, the current price is 30-40% higher from what he paid, so he's sitting in good profits. Mitesh, what would you tell him?
I would suggest him to exit. I think the stock hit a high of around 450 and then it started correcting. The longer term charts for most of the OMCs are not very promising, and so is the case with Chennai Petroleum. It's kind of fallen in the last 3 months, so it's giving a bounce back. But I think upside will be capped about 360, 375 zones, and the downside can be possibly to about as low as about 280 to 75 on the downside possible if you take it up, if you get about 2 to 3 quarters. So in that sense, I think it's an exit.
Okay. Well, now for the final headline from the day's market action, the stocks that were in focus. First up, Fortis Healthcare gained 4% in trade today after IHH said that they would make a counter offer to the prevailing TPG Manipal bid. IHH said that they would buy Fortis for $1.3 billion. And this is, however, a non-binding bid, and obviously the bidder is seeking time for due diligence. Separately, Dish TV was in the news. It saw an upswing, rising 6.5% as the promoters bought 5% in the merged entity. The stock has, of course, merged with the Videocon DTH. The promoters have also launched an open offer.
We've got a question on Fortis. Viewer Gopal Krishna Shetty has 1,400 shares of Fortis. He's paid 152 rupees each for them. Been holding the stock for the last 3 months. He's a short-term investor and wants to know if he should hold or sell. I mean, since this is completely driven by news flow and the deals, Mayuresh, what would you tell him?
No, Prashant, I think you said it yourself. I think it's completely news-driven at this point of time, and unless we receive absolute amount of clarity, I think my contention is that there are better stocks within the mid-cap universe to look at. So something like LT Foods is something that we'll still continue to prefer, where our sense is that a 14% top line, 20% bottom line growth, not ruled out, export markets looking strong for them. The debt reduction patterns with capital raising will obviously ensure that ROC is inch up from 10 to 12.5%. And the other stock within the larger universe is HSIL. So here again, I think the sanitary ware market along with the container glass market and then foraying into the consumer business where EBIT margins are far better would ensure a 15% top line bottom line growth. So I think these couple mid-cap stocks can be looked at on